We all know Keir Starmer, or Captain Hindsight, is quite well known for his flip-flopping and being indecisive. So in this video, we're going to talk about him when it comes to schools reopening and also the exam results that just come out, A-levels and next week with GCSEs, because this guy is getting absolutely ridiculous. It's going to make a lot of people on the left going to miss Jeremy Corbyn, and he was really good at flip-flopping. So this guy and his Labour Party have been going around and all the left-wing teaching unions and the left-wing bureaucrats creating a model to predict the exam results for this summer, because there were no real exams going on, and because they didn't trust teachers to come up with the actual grades themselves. And this was actually endorsed by the unions and the Labour politicians. Now, obviously, they're saying that this is the government's fault. You have all these protests. There's a sign on the top right that one of the kids showing "Trust teachers, not Tories." Was it actually the Tories or was it the bureaucrats? Even a couple of months ago, Angela Rayner herself said that she and the Labour Party don't trust the teachers to actually come up with these grades. It's because she actually originally opposed teachers handing out the grades, the predicted grades, without editing them by using the bureaucrats. Essentially, back in April, when she was still the Shadow Education Secretary, the Labour Party was clear that it did not trust teachers to hand out grades. She said that we have always said that predicted grades are not always accurate. And yes, so I mean, this is the position that they had. And then you have Keir Starmer, this idiot who just wrote an article for the Mail on Sunday saying that I don't just want all our children back in school, I expect it. No ifs, no buts. Labour's, so this is an article written by Keir Starmer who wants schools to reopen. This is the same Keir Starmer who was just recently against reopening schools. And only a couple of weeks ago, he kept refusing to say whether he backs the schools and reopening, as he argued with Boris Johnson. Now he's written an article today, Mail on Sunday, saying that I want Britain to be a country where every child can have the opportunity to fulfill their potential. Now, he says, the anger and frustration I have heard from families over recent days about the exam fiasco has been profound. Translation, he's talked to some young kids and also families, realize, ooh, I could get some new votes because I think I might have angered them recently. So let's get back to getting the pupils, the teenagers and their parents to vote for the Labour Party. Now, to discuss all this, we have our Sunday contributor, Andre Walker. Good morning. Well, afternoon, whenever people are watching this. Hi, Andre. How are you? Good. So what's going on with the Labour Party and Keir Starmer?
Well, first of all, what's going on with children? What has happened to children and young people in recent months is absolutely shameful. So first of all, let's talk about this marking down. In Scotland, the richest children were marked down by 6.9%, whereas the poorest children were marked down by 15.2%. Mm-hmm. Now, when they say that some schools are not giving any education or any lessons to children and young people, that's not in Leafy, Surrey, that's not in Windsor, that's not in Berkshire, that's in some of the poorest communities in this country. You know, I said on my channel that actually what we need to do to teachers who refuse to go back into work, say, hey, never come back. We're going to sack you, we're going to take your pension, and temporarily, let's make it a criminal offence to organise strikes for teachers.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And I think you mentioned Scotland as well, the gradings obviously predicting the whole thing. It kind of a similar situation in England, but slightly different, and people don't understand on the left about this issue because in England we still went with the recommendations from teachers generally, and there was a percentage of them that got downgraded by 1 grade. And I think the issue is that people say Nicola Sturgeon and Scotland U-turned, and they were forced to actually go with the teacher's recommendation. They say that Gavin Williamson politically might have been a good idea for him to do that as well. But the alternative is that Gavin Williamson and the Tories have created this appeal process, which is now free. What would you have done if you were like the Tory government?
Well, first and foremost, the reason this whole thing seems ridiculous is because inventing grades and making up results for exams that didn't happen is ridiculous. I genuinely believe these kids should have sat their exams.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should have been given that opportunity because
Yep.
even at the end of this whole process, your GCSE or A levels this year are a joke, whatever result you get. And so I just think that let's forget whether appeals this and change that and predict whatever. If you've not sat the exam, the whole thing is a waste of time. And, you know, the head of paediatrics of the British Medical Association said there was very, very little chance of children getting ill by going into school. So let's send them into school.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at least for one exam, well, as in like not one exam, but series of exams going on a day to sit, and you could socially distance, whatever you want to do. That could have happened, but I think my issue is with Keir Starmer. All this flip flopping. Do you think it's actually because he's sort of like Tony Blair? He's using all these secret kind of focus groups and stuff like that to keep changing his mind, or is he actually just indecisive?
Well, you know, you can't govern by focus group. So first and foremost, I suspect Keir Starmer wants children to go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is he's also in hock to the teaching unions.
Yep.
Right? Actually, what he needs to do is take on the teaching unions and just say, look, I'm sorry, this is a time of national crisis. You need to get back into the classrooms. Now, I'm very sorry about your argument this and wanting to do whatever. One teaching union had 200 demands before they would allow their teachers to go back into school. They know we would never make good on all of them. He needs to take on the teaching union and tell them where to go.
Yeah, it's weird because when it comes to the reopening, it's the unions that have been the biggest obstacle. But also, when it comes to this, like, the whole exam fiasco, it was actually the unions who helped create and endorse the model. And now you have Labour politicians taking advantage of this situation, going around saying, well, it's the Tory government, Gavin Williamson, Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings. Actually, I had Robert Peston tweeting earlier saying that, you know, maybe it's Dominic Cummings' fault. They keep bringing up Cummings. It's like, you know, anything that bad happens, just Dominic Cummings. And then you have, obviously, all the...
Did you know the great thing about Dominic Cummings? Simply by being alive, he angers the left, which is fantastic. Can I ask you a question? Do you believe that we can ever have a sensible Labour Party as long as they're in hock to these unions?
Well, yes and no. I think it's not just the unions that are now a problem. And it's not necessarily the hard left either in that sense, not the Corbynistas. I think there is this faction of your ordinary kind of centre-left activists and members who have taken over. And these are not the new Labour Blairites. And yes, a lot of them are connected to unions. But these are not your traditional unionists who are just working class and wanted to kind of help kind of the workers. So you're right. I think the reason the Labour Party can't really become sensible anytime soon or ever is not just because of Corbynistas, but it's actually because of the unions and people around them, because they keep getting endorsed by the membership. The membership might have rejected Corbynism to an extent by electing Keir Starmer. But as a whole, the Labour Party are still in favour of this mob mentality of the unions and groups like that.
I just feel that the Labour Party's become so middle class. I mean, they're talking about the Red Wall. The reason the Red Wall collapsed is because the Labour Party walked away from the working class years ago. You know, all of these issues about gender recognition and all these sorts of things, they are middle class issues. These guys have not talked to the working class in years. And the fact that they could not reopen schools in Salford because the teaching unions, you know, it's genuinely shameful.
Okay, question for you. And this is, I mean, we all probably know the answer. It's just why is it always happening? So Angela Rayner, she was Shadow Education Secretary. She comes out and essentially say that we don't trust teachers to predict the grades. And so we need to basically get bureaucrats to come up with a model. And no one cares, none of the teachers or left-wing unions. Whereas if that were a Tory politician saying it, that would have been a massive scandal, saying, oh, the Tory minister or MP says that we don't trust teachers. How do they get away with it? And then you have all these students now protesting against the government, saying that this is all the Tories' fault.
Yeah, but are they getting away with it? The truth is the Labour Party is hugely unpopular. I mean, I remember there was an amazing thing. There was this prevent strategy where young people were spied on by the counter-terrorism unit, rightly or wrongly. It was brought in by the Labour Party. Theresa May made it less draconian, and suddenly the teachers went on strike complaining about it. But actually, when the Labour Party introduced it, they didn't care. It was only when the Conservatives made changes they cared. Look, the truth of the matter is, a lot of these people are hypocrites. They don't care about ordinary working class kids. 15.2% markdown is shameful based on an algorithm and the previous performance of your skill. It's absolutely disgusting. They're not interested. What they're interested in is these middle class issues, veganism, gender recognition, all that sort of thing. They're not interested in working class kids. They don't give a toss about poor kids going to Cambridge. They genuinely don't.
Well, speaking of veganism and all that middle class stuff, you've started your channel recently, and it's going really well. What are you on? Like 15, 16,000 subscribers, right?
16,000 subscribers. So it's Andre JP Walker. I think there's a link in the description. Normally you put it up in the corner
Yeah,
as well.
I'll put it up there as well on that side, and then in the description. But so we're gonna, for those of you who haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe to Andre's channel. But it's Sunday, so we're just gonna go prepare for our weekly video podcast for the members of the channel. So if you're a member, see you guys there in a couple of hours when we post this. But also, if you're not a member, check out the link in the description, or just go on that URL, youtube.com/mytc/join. We're just gonna basically start the video podcast and talk about all the things that Andre has been discussing on his channel and everything else. Thanks for coming on the show, Andre, and let's go record our video podcast.
Fantastic.